Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Fabrice Paublant from Orixha, and I'm afraid I have bad news for you today. It's about 3 p.m., so most of us are reaching our peak in postprandial fatigue. So in order to fight this urge for siesta, I offer we talk about something completely different today, liquid ventilation. Liquid ventilation means breathing a liquid. But that's James Cameron stuff, right? That's science fiction. Well, it was. But in 2024, it will become a clinical reality. With Vent2Cool, our first product based on our proprietary LunoLIVE technology, and LunoLIVE stands for lung conservative liquid ventilation. With LunoLIVE, by exclusively ventilating a patient with a breathable liquid, you provide two major and essential life support functions for critical care. The first function is precise and rapid thermal control of the patient. The breathable liquid is a thermal vector, and therefore we can use the lungs as a heat exchanger to very rapidly induce hypothermia, and that's what Vent2Cool is doing for cardiac arrest patients. The second life support function is lung protective ventilatory respiratory support. The breathable liquid acts as a mechanical barrier for the alveoli against the local inflammation in the lungs. And therefore, with Vent2Breathe, our second product, we can provide physiological, non-inflammatory respiratory support to ARDS patients, for instance. Over the past 10 years, we've performed an exhaustive proof of concept on the LunoLIVE technology on more than 25 in vivo models, including human-sized pigs and non-human primates, to validate the safety, the performance, as well as neuroprotection and cardioprotection, leading to survival gains in those relevant animal models. But now it's time to come to the clinic and to save lives. And that's what we will do with Vent2Cool. So how does it work? Well, you have a comatose patient intubated on the right, and on the left, or rather on your left and on my right, and on the other side, you have a liquid ventilator, the Vent2Cool liquid ventilator that performs 3 key functions. First, it will ventilate the patient with about 1 liter of breathable liquid every 10 seconds. At the same time, it will remove the liquid which is in the device. This liquid will remove the carbon dioxide and reoxygenate it. And third of all, it will precisely control the temperature of this liquid to induce ultra-rapid hypothermia and protect those patients from the cardiac arrest syndrome. Vent2Cool addresses a major unmet medical need, post-cardiac arrest syndrome, also called as PCAS. As you can see, on the cardiac arrest survival chain, less than 1 out of 10 cardiac arrest patients, when the cardiac arrest happens out of hospital, survives in the end. And that's because 2/3 of those patients, the patients who have been initially resuscitated, 2/3 of those patients die in the hospital from PCAS. That's 150,000 deaths every year, in Europe and US from PCAS. And we will tackle that with the Vent2Cool system that you see here. The goal is to improve the overall survival in good neurological conditions for those initially resuscitated patients. And we want to save more than 50% of those patients instead of 30 to 35%, as currently is done by current solutions. It is well known from preclinical data, and it's corroborated by real-life clinical data, that cooling speed is the dose effect in PCAS. The faster you reach 33 degrees, the more potent you are and the more gain you have on survival. Vent2Cool is the only solution to hit the 2 hours therapeutic window to protect efficiently the patient from the cytokine storm that arises in PCAS. The other solutions take more than 4 hours and therefore have very limited efficacy on the cytokine storm. Here you see what is both a competition, and a partnering slide. Actually, except for the ZOL solution, the thermoguard endovascular system, which is in the middle and which accounts for less than 3% of the total procedures, or the main players like BD and Stryker, who develop and commercialize external cooling systems, are welcoming the arrival of Vent2Cool on the market for two good reasons. First, with Vent2Cool, we take care exclusively of the induction phase of therapeutic hypothermia. So we still need their solutions, their external cooling solutions, for the maintenance and the rewarming phase. And second of all, with the added efficacy and the significant effect size on PCS from the Vent2Cool ultra-rapid induction, the whole field will be boosted by finally having an efficacious solution to treat those patients. And the Vent2Cool tide will lift all the boats. So what happens once we validate the superiority of Vent2Cool and we have Vent2Cool included in the cardiac arrest guidelines? As you can see, out of the 700,000 patients every year who suffer from out-of-hospital cardiac arrest in Europe and the US, 220,000 of them are resuscitated. And if we take into account a 2-hour therapeutic window to act on them and bring benefits, we estimate 120,000 patients who could benefit from Vent2Cool every year. That's with a revenue model of $10,000 per patient. By 2030, Orixha will be addressing a $1.2 billion market in Europe and the US, and will be saving close to 20,000 additional lives every year. This year, we achieved the R&D completion of the Vent2Cool solution, and now we're entering the clinical and regulatory validation, which will take us to commercialization in 2027. Clinical validation will start early next year in Hôpital Cochin in Paris and Erasmus in Brussels, two leading cardiac arrest centers, and will be followed by a pivotal randomized clinical trial on both sides of the Atlantic and a post-market superiority study. This ambitious plan is powered by a strong ecosystem, with at the center of the ecosystem a management team, a core team with experienced managers, and in hardware and software development, experience in quality and regulatory, as well as our medical and marketing affairs. We also have the chance to have first-class industrial partners on board. You can see their logos here on the slide. And we have the support of the key KOLs in the field in cardiac arrest on both sides of the Atlantic, people such as Professor Alain Cariou in Paris, Fabio Taccone in Brussels, and Graham Nicol in Seattle. So we're currently working on 2 fundraising rounds. The first one that we will close in the coming months, a convertible bond round led by the EIB that will cover the next 2 years of financing for the first initial clinical validation of Vent2Cool. And then looking forward to a Series A round of 15 to 20 million euros in 2025 to cover the final clinical validation and the early commercialization phase in Europe for Vent2Cool. So with that being said, let's meet in Barcelona to make liquid ventilation a clinical reality together. Thank you for your attention.